Hello and welcome back to Rebound with Resilience, a podcast dedicated to raise your resilience, mindset, and mental wellness. On the final episode with SafePod at Queenstown to chat about befriending and supporting others, we have a counsellor in training and SafePod befriender, Kathleen David. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yes.
Okay, great. How are you feeling?
Excited to be here, but also very nervous.
Very nervous?
Yeah,
we're chatting about it off camera, and it's not easy to sometimes be in front of a screen, but I appreciate you coming to share your experiences, and I'd love to hear from you as well. We are going to chat about befriending and supporting others, something that, we take for granted, right? Being a friend to someone else. Someone's like, why must you teach me how to be a friend? But actually, there are some skills and things to keep in mind when approaching a stranger or when wanting to build rapport with them. So we'll discuss that, and of course a commonly asked question: how do you support someone in need? Okay, so that's what's in store for you all. Let's do some warm-up questions so audience get to know you a bit better.
Okay.
Kathleen, share with us about your journey. How do you become a befriender? Yeah.
It started with my decision to study counselling part-time. So my prior training was actually in finance and accounting.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a double degree in that. And I was working for many years in the banking industry, also in the finance department of certain companies.
Okay.
I think after a few years in banking, I took a few months of a break, because I was starting to feel very jaded and starting to question where the meaning and purpose in my work was.
Sure.
It's something that's quite important to me. So through a lot of contemplation, I finally realized that, counselling is where I would want to build a new career in.
Okay.
So I started on this 2-year master course during circuit breaker, actually.
Wow.
I'm about 6 months to completion.
Sure. And part of it involves real life training, right? Real life experiences. And that's how you got in touch with SafePod. That's how I met you as well.
Yes, correct.
It's not easy decision at all because counseling involves a lot. Was there any consideration like that you had in your mind, or did you chat with anybody?
Yeah, of course. I think making a mid-career switch is a huge decision, especially at that time I was preparing to get married. So I had to be really sure. I knew I wanted to be in a helping profession, but I had to speak with counsellors and social workers just to really suss out which exact part of the helping industry and social work that I wanted to do. And I think also having to let go of that financial security that comes from a corporate job,
Sure.
which perhaps was my original intention of going into banking in the first place. It took a lot of it took 2 years for me to finally take that leap, and I think I am not regretting it so far.
I was going to ask you if there's any regrets. You answered the question.
Yes.
That's good. I saw you really shining and really in your element when I met you chatting with the kids that day, I think Bukit Merah Secondary. We are going to chat about that, befriending. I think it's a good lead into our topic today. So you go to schools, communities to befriend, right, and help them. It's a term that's not used very often. Could I ask you to share what befriending is?
Yeah, I think in my experience so far, befriending is simply the act of reaching out to someone and establishing a connection with them. Yeah, so it's one step before entering into an actual professional helping relationship, but it also goes beyond just having a chit chat with somebody. Yeah, it's really getting to the heart of whatever they're feeling or going through. Of course, that doesn't come easily or immediately. There's still a couple of steps like building of rapport and gaining their trust that comes before that. That's
interesting. In fact, now with this focus on mental wellness, even in schools, they're getting befrienders. Right, these peer supporters, and then befriending is one skill that they teach them because they can reach out to their peers. Right, and I think in social service, the word befriender is, kind of a trained volunteers where they reach out to people to provide companionship, support, to involve people in the services that the agency is providing, right? So it's very meaningful work. Just curious, do you notice any barriers to befriending, in your work? What is some barriers on their end, or your end?
I think not everyone. Having to go out and reach out to people is not within everyone's comfort zone.
Sure.
Because people who enter this line of work perhaps are comfortable speaking one-on-one to people. So it requires a little bit of courage and to abandon fears of, what might the other person be thinking of you, how they might be perceiving you. I think that's something that some people might initially struggle with.
Yeah, how do you overcome that, the fear of being judged?
Well, if you think about it, when someone speaks to you or comes up to you, like, I don't naturally think that they are weird, right? But that's just the common perception or the fear that we might have if, someone is, like, whoa, they think I'm a weirdo, I'm like stalking them. But actually, if you think about your own perception when that happens to you, I don't know how many of us actually really
outright judge somebody,
right? Exactly. I guess it also depends on the way you're approached, I guess. So
there's this phrase that I recently came across that helps me a lot. It says that I stopped caring about what other people think when I realized how little they actually do. in a way, we always think that we always worry, but a lot of times people are more concerned about their own challenges. And it helps to, like you said, step out of your comfort zone, because when you reach out to somebody, you realize that, hey, actually a lot of them are open and talking to you. This is my own personal experience. Even though traditionally we're in a society that's a bit more closed, and this is just my personal opinion, that I don't think people in Singapore are rude per se. Maybe we're a bit more close than other countries, or maybe we lack a bit of a heart. But I think if you just say hi to people on the streets, or you're queuing up for food, some people will, be nice enough to talk to you. So what are some skills of befriending that has been useful for you, or useful to anybody that maybe wants to, it could be a student listening to this, it could be a working adult that's an introvert and they want to network more, right, in their workplace, whatever. Befriending is an important skill, right? What are some things that's helped you, or skills of befriending that we have?
First of all, I think the mindset is important, like recognizing that everyone you interact with is a human being. Abandoning that idea of like a power differential helps me a lot, because even when I speak to the children in the schools, I don't go in as someone who thinks I know better than them just because I'm older. There's a lot you can learn from younger people as well. So I think it's just going in, speaking to someone and withholding any judgment or withholding any perceptions of how much better or worse you are than them. That kind of helps to alleviate some of the fears, that is associated with that. Also not expecting them to reciprocate immediately, not getting so fearful the moment they just appear a little bit reluctant or apprehensive.
Cool. And being able to hold space and be comfortable with silence, right? I think it's sometimes not easy at all, because we need to have empathy. And then if you all can check out episode 2, we talked about empathy in detail. Empathy is a premise. But going in, also being able to read people's non-verbals, and when you need to kind of move back a little bit, slow down a bit, but when you can match their pace, because some of them are faster pace, it's okay to match and everything. So building rapport actually does involve matching, mirroring, this kind of stuff. But also I want to add on, I think you mentioned, I did a bit of research. I think some cornerstone to befriending is being able to build trust. Right, that comes from, like you said, being able to suspend your judgment, being able to come across as someone that is there to help, right? Welcoming, approachable. And then, of course, down here I wrote understanding the whole person, which means that we don't come to a conclusion about what the person is beforehand. And finally, I think this is a key part that perhaps separates befriending from maybe just casually making friends, right? This is an element of participation and engagement. So bringing them into the service that you're providing and encouraging them to do a certain act. Is it tough to encourage them? In your context, I think it's encouraging them to do the facial analysis, right?
Well, that's one way of opening the conversation.
What else do you help them with? Is there any call to action in chatting with them?
I think just bringing that awareness that mental health is not a taboo. It's actually doing things to take care of your mental health is actually something that everyone should. It's just like taking care of your physical health. I think there's starting to be some, even at the young age, I've encountered students who be like, oh, mental health issues, right? But I think just getting them a part of the conversation, just helping to check on whether they have internal and external resources, like a close, supportive group of friends or family, and if not, introducing those to them. I think SafePod has a wide variety of such resources available. They can request to see someone with the click of a button on the website as well. So
I love it. It's just about raising awareness in them. It could even just be a small conversation they had with you, but they keep that in their memory. Right, next time when they have issues and they think, hey, actually this lady came, right, and she was nice to me and she talked to me about mental wellness, and then suddenly they remember it and they don't judge themselves so much, or they don't judge other people, right, when they see other people facing their challenge. Okay, so it's awareness, but also, like you said, giving them potential, being aware of what the services they can provide for them. And I think that's a very good lead in also to, like, our second part of the podcast, which is how can you support somebody that opens up to you. It's almost as if there are two aspects, right? One is being able to hold space, and the other one is accessing the needs, being aware of what are the sources of help, and then matching them to those sources of help.
If someone has chosen to open up to you, first of all, don't take it lightly, because they didn't owe you that, but they kind of viewed you as someone that they think is trustworthy. So preserving that confidentiality is important, holding space and listening non-judgmentally. But also, going beyond, if you sense that they are really in a crisis or they require continued support, I think it's important to know also your boundaries in the helping relationship. And if it's something that is, not something, well, if it's something that is harder for you
to handle alone,
it will be helpful for both you and the person to refer them to,
professional
structured,
help.
Structured and professional help. I think boundaries is a very important thing, so that you don't end up trying to become their rescuer,
Oh, this is something that I faced back when I was helping, when I was younger and a bit less wise. Wow, I go in head first like a savior. I think this, I'm like, I don't want to make any spiritual references, right? But okay, I mean, I'm saying this objectively. I feel like I'm Jesus Christ. Right? I go in and I try and save everybody in the best way possible, but with that intentions, I realize that I cannot play God. Right? I don't have control over everything, and when I try to control things that I cannot, it leads to a lot of anxiety and frustration on my part, and also maybe do a disservice to the people I'm trying to help. Because you make them too reliant on just one source. You cannot make them your entire world, or vice versa.
It's not sustainable as well. I think the point of befriending is also to introduce them to resources that they can continue to turn to for sustained help.
And there's a phrase I want to quote by Brené Brown. She said, boundaries are the closest distance through which I can love both myself and you. I like that definition a lot, because it's also knowing where are your own boundaries and what you can or cannot do, and theirs. Before we go into the specific things, skills, principles on responding to someone, let's end off this segment by sharing why do you think befriending is important, or why should people care about befriending in society? Why can't I just live my own life?
I mean, the pandemic, I think, has shown that we are all very much interconnected with one another, right? Just stepping out of your house, you're going to encounter like hundreds of people in your day. Trace Together will tell you that. Without consciously or saying anything, without consciousness, you have the capacity to affect the people around you. And just think about that, like, do you want that impact on others to be a positive one? I think society can use a lot more compassion, a lot more genuineness, a lot more joy. Like, everyone has been, so sucked of life by the pandemic, right?
I love it. It helps the overall well-being. I think there's so much. I mean, we talked about this in the second episode, but there's a lot of emphasis in modern society on the heart, on the mind, on intellect, on results, but very little on the matters of the heart. And that's where our satisfaction actually lies. That's where our happiness lies. In fact, research, the longest longitudinal research, shows that the number one predictor of happiness is the strength of our social relationships. And, ironically, it's something that we don't place emphasis on, or we don't at least consciously think about. It could even be starting small, right? Just smiling to somebody in a lift, saying hello, have a nice day, or even to the cleaner that cleans, expressing just a kind word. Those are little skills of befriending, of building rapport. and then you can expand it, in whatever way you want. Yeah, so I encourage you all, just be nice and try and step out of your comfort zone to say hello. Usually people are not that scary. If they are, just walk away, just realize it's not you, it's them, and don't let that stop you from being nice. All right, let's talk about responding to others. What are some broad principles if someone comes to you and says, like, Kathleen, I'm struggling, or what principles of support will you have to share?
I think make sure you have the capacity and then offer them that space. I'm here to listen. I may not be able to help too much in the problem, but I'm willing to let you, to hear you out. Yeah, I think a lot of times people are just looking for someone to hear them out. Like, a lot of problems are a bit too difficult even for us to solve.
Yeah,
and just holding space, withholding judgment, definitely withholding your own values, because everyone comes from a different space, a different upbringing. Never imposing that on others, but just making sure that everything that you communicate, whether it's verbal, non-verbal, does not communicate like judgment. I think it's also important maybe not to assume so quickly that you have been through something similar. Yeah, you'd be like, I've been there before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It might come from good intentions, but I think even using these phrases might invalidate the person, or rather stop them from fully sharing with you first. Yeah. Okay, I want to put in a disclaimer here. I think this is a topic that it's not easy to discuss because it's very nuanced. And so it's important to understand context and content. Now, I share this a lot, even in... And what it means is this, is that the content is like your fruits. It's like the fruits in a bowl, right? This is advice people give you. This is what you should or should not do. That's content. The context is like the fruit bowl that's holding the fruits. It's like everybody's fruit bowl is different. Everybody's experiences, where they've been, their emotions, their outcomes that they want is very different. Their relationship status between two parties is different. So understanding the context under which the content is being applied is absolutely crucial in learning how to support someone better. That's what I learned. And I hope there's something you can take back, because you probably heard this before, support others, don't be so quick to judge, and, hold space for other people. Don't try and fix people's problems immediately, and all those applies. But I will also encourage you to go a step further and consider the context and the relationships. Sometimes people do want a quick solution, right? Sometimes in a coach, because a mentor-mentee relationship, or sometimes like my tennis coach, right? I really know that he loves me, so he scold me. Okay, you know what I mean? So it really differs from individual to individual, relationship to relationship. But I think broadly speaking, when someone is struggling and wants to open up to you, like you said, being able to just provide them that space to share, it's very underrated. Yeah. What are some maybe skill sets within those principles, like practical skills that people can do?
Communicating I think paraphrasing is one that is always cited, like to show that you have understood what they said, so that they can feel heard and understood. But also don't be a parrot.
On that topic as well, the idea of interrogation. Sometimes when I was younger, there's a fine line between interrogating and probing. Yeah. Because I think asking probing questions with love and support can really help people to open up more and make them feel heard, because then they realize that, he's thinking more deeper about my problems and he wants to know more. And you're interested in the person. Yeah. So probing questions do help, right? Like, will you share a bit more about the situation? What events, maybe what things led to that? How do you feel in that situation? So things like that allow people to expand, but just be mindful that it doesn't become interrogation. Yes. Like everything the person says, you just keep asking. It becomes an interrogation. Yeah. Anything else that has worked well for you, like in your own experiences with chatting with kids, or even in your own helping your own friends?
I think really meeting them where they're at. Like if they're at a certain place, don't try to lead them to where they're not ready to go yet. I think that's something that is...
Don't rush the process for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in good intentions and earnestness to help someone, but sometimes just being with them where they're at and not trying to control or lead them to a certain place that you think they should be at or they can go to,
I like that distinction a lot, because as human beings we almost feel like I must immediately solve this problem and lead this person to where I think is the best place for them. Again, context matters. If this person is about to take their life, maybe you need to do a bit of force, right? Maybe you need to enforce a certain level of I love you, and that's why I'm doing this for you. But I think in most cases, personally for me, when I support somebody, I like to share that I let them realize that I cannot fully understand what you go through because it's your own experiences, and I'll never take that away from you. In fact, I also cannot provide you a solution. I'm not here to provide a solution. I can say that I would love to share my perspective with you, maybe give some suggestions, some resources, tools that, or even people you can go to.
Yeah.
But I always give the power back to them.
Yes.
I say that this ultimately is your choice, and I want to respect that. I'm just giving you these options.
Yeah.
I think when I do that, also people feel like a bit safer. They don't feel like they're being imposed on.
Yeah.
So that's good. And I think that leads on to our last topic of discussion, which is where can people equip themselves with avenues of support? Like knowledge of avenues of support.
Well, SafePod is a good starting point, I guess, because through the platform, there are various avenues by which you can reach out for help. There are also various hotlines that you can dial if you need urgent assistance, and there might not always be someone immediately available to you in your own circle of friends.
I'll help you out with that. So because there are things like, especially for youth, some organizations that I'm aware of is Limitless. Limitless campus site. I'll include the links there. Usually for youth, SAMH as well, Singapore Association for Mental Health. I mean, at least this is just me. You don't need to be me. But for me, it helps to know people in a space. Like I know them individually, personally. So I can know like who might be suitable for this person, and I direct them directly to this particular contact to help them. Right, so that's for youth side. For adults, whereas I also have, various organizations that I work with that I'm aware of, and actually helping them to, make that connection would actually help to reduce the friction. Yeah. So what I found is that if you reduce the friction for somebody to seek help, it helps, because in that situation, someone's like, there are so many things in their mind. Like the last thing you want to do is research places to and make calls and everything. So if you ease that process for them on trust alone, they might actually take your suggestion. There's something that if you want to go the extra mile for your friend, you can consider doing. And I will just include in some links y'all can look at if you want to equip yourself.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I hope that really helps y'all. I mean, that for me at least has been effective in me providing support for a wide range of people, even with one person, and how I managed it personally without burning out. Without being a savior. Yeah. All right. Is there any last things you want to share about like this topic? Any message you want to share to Singaporeans or people who are, just want to learn more about this topic?
I think don't be afraid to start small. Going into an organization and carrying out initiating a long befriending journey, it might seem daunting, but I think as you mentioned earlier, right, the little actions that we do in our daily lives already have the capacity to impact people positively. So don't be afraid to, check on that auntie that cleans your office toilet or pantry, ask her if she's eaten. People that you come across at work, maybe like say hi when you see them, give them a smile. On the roads, even like if someone gives way to you, just a wave of thanks. We can start small. We don't have to do big fancy things in order to begin on this journey of befriending people and showing a bit more compassion in society.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Yeah.
Name. I appreciate your role and your courage in taking that step, to be in this profession. And I wish you nothing but the best. I really hope that you derive satisfaction from this new role. And I'm sure that the people that you serve will also be very happy and grateful for your presence. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all that you do too. It's amazing.
Okay, welcome. And of course, finally, to you listening, we've come to the end of our partnership with SafePod at Queenstown, at least for now. So if this is the first episode you checked out, do check out the past 2 episodes and the video we did interviewing kids and adults. And as always, we love you and appreciate you. Stay resilient. Subscribe also to the channel, please, to help us bring more content. Share, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.